Imagine wiping out the federal income tax bill completely for half of the working population. We're not talking about reducing it or, tweaking the tax brackets here and there. We mean completely eliminating it. In this explainer, we're breaking down a really radical headline-grabbing proposal from Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. He's out there arguing that the bottom 50% of American earners should pay absolutely zero in federal income tax. It's a massive idea, and it has sparked a fierce debate across the political spectrum about wealth, inequality, and how we actually fund our government.
Okay, let's dive right into this. In a recent CNBC interview, Bezos, who, remember, is the world's fourth richest person with an estimated net worth of roughly $267 billion, laid out his core philosophy. He said, "I think there's something very powerful about zero. Zero is a better number than $1. So he isn't just suggesting some light tax relief, he's pitching a total erasure of federal income tax liability for millions of Americans who are currently struggling.
So what does this all mean? Does a 0% tax rate actually create the next Steve Jobs? Bezos gets really personal on this point. He draws heavily on his own background as the son of a Cuban immigrant father and a teenage mother who, as he puts it, brought themselves up. His fundamental belief is that if the government just eliminates the tax bill for people struggling today, it gives them the crucial financial breathing room they need to pursue entrepreneurship. Essentially, he's saying it gives everyday people a launchpad to become the next generation of business leaders.
Section 1, the zero tax pitch, and the nurse in Queens.
To really ground this idea, Bezos asks us to picture a hypothetical healthcare worker living in Queens, New York, making $75,000 a year. Now, under the current system, that worker pays over $12,000 annually in taxes. If we follow Bezos' plan and zero out their federal income tax, that instantly puts exactly $1,000 a month right back into their pocket. Just think about that for a second. For a household trying to make ends meet, $1,000 a month is absolutely crucial. It's not a rounding error. It's rent, it's groceries, it's covering a car payment. It's truly transformative financial relief.
Section 2, by the numbers. Who actually pays? Let's check the math.
And this brilliantly illustrates the reality of our current system, using hard data from the Nonpartisan Tax Foundation. Just look at the staggering contrast here. The top 1% of earners pay roughly 40% of all federal income tax revenue. On the flip side, the bottom 50%, which is basically anyone earning around $53,800 or less, they contribute a mere 3.3% to the total pie. So Bezos' argument is pretty straightforward. If the government barely relies on that 3.3% anyway, why not just let those workers keep it?
Now here's where the broader context from the Tax Policy Center makes things really interesting. In 2025, roughly 76 million households actually paid zero federal income tax. Wait, how is that possible? Well, 70% of those households earn under $75,000, and they already legally avoid the tax thanks to standard deductions, earned income tax credits, and child tax credits. So for literally millions of Americans, the tax code is already heavily subsidized. Bezos is basically arguing to formalize and expand what is already happening for a lot of people.
Section 3, the billionaire loophole reality, the top 1% versus the tax code.
Of course, there's a whole other side to this wealth divide. While the Tax Foundation reports that the top 1% pay an official average rate of 26.3%, researchers at the Yale Budget Lab found something vastly different. They found that high earners utilize strategic investments and loopholes to drop their effective tax rates to as low as 3%. So while the bottom 50% is paying that 3.3% on pretty modest wages, some of the wealthiest individuals in the world are effectively paying the exact same percentage on billions of dollars.
Now, when Bezos gets challenged on this and people ask if he supports raising taxes on billionaires to fund social programs instead, he offers a pretty blunt defense. He says, "You could double the taxes I pay and it's not going to help that teacher in Queens, I promise you." His perspective is that simply extracting more money from the ultra-wealthy isn't magically going to trickle down to solve the daily ground-level financial struggles of working-class Americans.
But as you can guess, that stance creates immediate political friction. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani fired back directly on X, saying, "I know a few teachers in Queens who would beg to differ." And this exchange perfectly highlights the deep national divide. On one side, you have folks who believe the wealthy absolutely must pay more to fund public services like education. On the other, you have those who believe government spending is just too inefficient to directly help individuals in need.
Section 4, the hidden tax burden. The 97 other ways we pay.
Because here's the inescapable reality of the whole situation. Even if federal income taxes completely vanish tomorrow, everyday Americans are far from tax-free. Paradigm Life Insurance mapped out the U.S. tax code and found 97 different everyday taxes. It's actually kind of absurd when you rapid-fire read through them. You've got biodiesel taxes, toll booth taxes,
fishing license taxes, inventory taxes, hotel taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, liquor taxes, state, local, and excise taxes are literally everywhere. So you can eliminate the federal income tax, sure, but everyday Americans are still getting taxed every single time they drive to the store, buy groceries, or even just turn on their lights.
And then there's the ultimate sticker shock. Over $500,000. According to the financial technology company Self, the average American pays over $520,000 in taxes over their lifetime. That is a full third of all their lifetime earnings. To put that into perspective, just paying the taxes associated with buying and owning a popular everyday car like a Toyota RAV4 over a lifetime costs nearly $39,000.
And where you live dramatically alters this financial reality. Compare a lifetime tax burden in New Jersey, which pushes a staggering $987,000, to West Virginia, where it sits around $358,000. So even with a 0% federal income tax, a worker in New Jersey is still giving up a massive chunk of their lifetime earnings to state and local governments. The burden is still very much there.
Section 5. Competing Wealth Proposals. How lawmakers want to fix the system.
Right now, we're watching a complete legislative tug-of-war. On one hand, you have Senator Cory Booker's Keep Your Pay Act, which actually aligns somewhat with Bezos' idea. It aims to make the first $75,000 of household income tax-free. But on the other side, we're seeing aggressive progressive measures aimed squarely at the top. Senator Elizabeth Warren is pushing the Ultramillionaire Tax Act, which seeks an annual tax on households over $50 million. And out in California, there's a huge push for a one-time 5% wealth tax on billionaires, which is a move that actually has some wealthy residents threatening to pack up and leave the state entirely. This brings us to a major progressive counter-argument from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. They point out that Bezos' pitch sounds incredibly grandiose, but they argue it distracts from the real issue, the tax system's treatment of the wealthiest Americans and corporations. In fact, their research shows that Bezos' own company, Amazon, reaped $17.4 billion in federal tax breaks in 2025 alone. To critics, waving a wand to wipe out the bottom 50's tax bill is basically an empty gesture if giant corporations and billionaires are allowed to keep shielding billions of their own wealth from the IRS.
So, we've seen the math, we've seen the totally competing philosophies. Now we want to leave you with the very question that is echoing through the halls of Congress and city halls all across the country. Should we focus on entirely eliminating the tax burden for the bottom 50% to spark ground-level wealth? Or should we systematically increase taxes on the top 1% to adequately fund the nation? It's a fundamental question about fairness, economics, and what the American dream really costs. Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer. Take this data and decide for yourself.